Hi again. So let's take a look at how a typical humanitarian intervention or humanitarian program occurs. So normally what happens is that there's a crisis, or usually caused by a conflict situation or natural disasters, or just general degrading up to get to a point of crisis. Either there's a health crisis or an epidemic, or whatever. And then normally what would happen would be an organization, let's say, or an NGO, would carry out a needs assessment to determine whether there was a need to intervene or not. If they decide, that NGO can be in any sector, WASH, health, education, whatever, decides, yes, the needs are great enough for an intervention here, the next stage then is to do a proposal, which in theory should be including the design, or it should describe the design. In theory, there should be a design phase before, in my humble opinion, before a proposal is written. And but every organization or different people have different ways of doing this. Yeah, but for me, the design is after the needs is the most important part. So normally the proposal would be written, and then the budget would be written as well, and that would conform to certain mandates, to certain agendas, whatever, and then that would be put up the different hierarchical chains of the organization and also of the donor mechanisms to acquire the funding that it seeks. Then once all that process is finished and people have caught it and whatever, then that is then delivered back to the field, let's say, for it to be implemented. And then the field team is usually the team then that will implement this program or project or intervention, right? So that's kind of usually how it happens, the process, kind of step by step. Okay, and so this all makes sense in theory, right? Because it makes sense. You assess the needs. You write what you're going to do about those needs, and then you execute what you say you're going to do, right? But there's problems with the process, right? Because for a start, sometimes needs assessments are done very quickly, too quickly. Yeah, and with only a superficial understanding of the place and the people in it, and only a partial view sometimes. No, because sometimes, for example, a health NGO may only look at health, and that means they might be missing information about food security. They might be missing information about I don't know, other things, right? So the needs might be viewed through a very narrow lens. That causes some problems because with all the other parts missing, it could be complicated. And then, of course, things don't always stay the same, right? Things are evolving. So it's fine if you're very quick and which is a needs assessment can be done too quickly. So that's a problem. Needs assessments need time, yeah, to understand the full thing. Then also they need coordination. I mean, if there are other NGOs in the area assessing the same things, and then going to make the same types of proposals, all of that. So this problem about having a superficial contextual understanding can be problematic for the design, right? And also for the implementation. Then you have the problem of the different people involved in all of these steps that we mentioned. Yeah, maybe there's a team comes out especially to do the needs assessment, and that team makes a preliminary proposal, but then it's not that team then which will be doing the design. Then sometimes when it comes to actually formulating the proposal, a lot of technical people get involved in the design, depending on what type of program it is, right? There's always technical peoples or experts involved. Outside of the field sometimes. So sometimes you have some experts on the fields, and you then have experts in the capital or the HQ that are all then get involved in the process. And as they say, and I've said it before, sometimes too many people involved that have not been in the actual location can be a problem. And then what tends to happen sometimes is people kind of copy and paste designs onto different contexts, right? Different contextual places, right? Because no two places are the same, right? So you can have standards and things like that, but you have to be able to adapt them to fit different places and different circumstances, different situational variations. So that's one thing. And then the timing, no? Sometimes there's a lot of time passes between the needs assessment and the design and the actual funds coming through and the green light to go ahead. Sometimes there can be a lot of time. It's surprising sometimes months even. Yeah, and by that time, you need to take another check, right? Because 2 months is quite a long time in a crisis. A lot can happen in 2 months, a lot can happen in weeks, or nothing can happen. But you have to check. So that's a problem as well. Sometimes needs were assessed a long time before the implementation starts. And it doesn't mean that the needs have changed necessarily, but some other factors could change. Like some NGOs that said they were going to do something didn't, or maybe another armed actor came into the picture. You know, stuff changes all the time, particularly in crisis scenarios. They're very unpredictable. So the problem of what I call the paper versus the reality is that there's a paper written to get funding usually, but if the paper doesn't match the reality, then there will be problems in the implementation, and there will be problems in the impact as well, right? So imagine, we will talk about it in a minute, if you have an issue, an incomplete needs assessment, then you have too many cooks in the broth design, especially by people who haven't been to the place, based on this quite superficial understanding of the contextual elements. The design might be not tailored enough, let's say, to the place and the people. And then you have the problem of implementation. We'll talk about that in a minute. Has that been designed properly to fit the place, the people, the type of place that you're in, type of blockages you might have? And then the big problem as usual of, okay, how am I going to assess impact? And what am I going to say about my impact in my proposal? And how am I going to design for best impact? And how am I going to check that my design is going to give me that impact? Yeah, there's a lot of talk about monitoring and evaluation, but that's why I say that we're implementing the paper, because sometimes people are implementing activities. These activities have the indicators, and then you're just monitoring if you've done the activities or not. And it's very difficult to build the link between the objective, the set of activities, and the impact, right? So this is very complex and often not done properly. So we come under the assumption that if I run all of these activities, then that's how my impact is generated. But we all know that that's not true, right? So we need to be looking at that, and we'll talk about impact in a later video about how we should think about, or how we can think about impact to give better impact. Because at the end of the day, because humanitarian work is important, yeah, it's not like we're doing something that's not important, it has impact on lives. We need to always, in our role as program managers, make sure that everything we do is directed at having the most impact possible.